In Warhammer 40k, there's a concept of Chimeric gene seed that is usually done in homebrew chapters, usually combining a loyalist gene seed with the gene seed belonging to one of the traitor Primarchs, usually. Though in some cases, some of the loyalists. And in the case of a very much canon Space Marine chapter, the Space Sharks, or Carcharodons, I'm not sure I pronounced the name correctly, that their gene seed was partially chimeric just to sustain themselves because they were separate from the Imperium at large. I don't fully remember it. But let's get back on track. It's various organs put in a Marine neophyte to turn them into a full-blown Space Marine over time, after the psycho-indoctrination, which most chapters do, except the White Scars. And there are a lot of organs to put in the neophyte over time. That's why it's done in various phases. Because it takes time, and you can't put them all in at once. So, they do it slowly. There's various organs put in that each have their own effect on enhancing the Marine. There's an organ that allows them to spit acid. There's an organ that makes them bigger. Well, there are technically two that make them bigger. The amplifier and the biscopia. I think that's the right organ. But in that, yeah. They don't have to come from the same source, but they usually do. You see, gene seed is not made, it's grown. One of the implants of the Marine is to quite literally make a pod of sorts that is grown into new gene seed. It's why apothecaries have to harvest it from their brothers. They don't take out the organs, no, they just take out that pod, which is grown into new organs. Also, the reason why my voice sounds a bit weird might be because I'm pretty cold right now. Let's get back to it. But yeah, say you're a successor chapter of the Salamanders and you're an apothecary, and you end up fighting Night Lords. And, well, a lot of your gene seed gets damaged by them, and you can't make more Marines to compensate for your losses. So you decide to simply take their organs. They aren't mutated much, probably less than you, since you're a Salamander successor chapter, and those are already pretty mutated regularly. Might even make you less mutated in the long run, or whatever you're thinking to justify your reasoning. And boom, you make more Marines, but they're hybrids. And so, when those Marines live and die and their gene seed is then harvested by a new apothecary, or maybe even you if you live long enough, boom, the new Marines made, their organs will be completely a mix of Night Lords and Salamanders from the beginning. And eventually, it might even make your entire chapter hybrids of Night Lords and Salamanders without even knowing. Just because you made that decision to make more Marines, it's by taking those organs and then hiding the fact so you wouldn't get killed by the Inquisition for having traitor gene seed. Or you could have been made during the cursed 21st founding, and because of genetic tampering with the gene seed, which caused many mutant Space Marine chapters like the, Flaming Falcons, I believe that's the correct name, who had the ability to basically light themselves on fire, and the Black Dragons, who are a Salamanders etc. chapter that are famously known so maybe to be that hybrid chapter could be the result of trying to combine two separate gene seeds you found to make a new one that ended up becoming a full-blown chapter of Space Marines that happened to be a mix of traitor gene seed and a loyalist gene seed. Also, Chimeric gene seed, I think it was a pretty common idea for homebrew Space Marine chapters, but I'm not sure I've ever heard how it works before and ever thought of explaining this, because most of this is what I believe how it works. But yeah, gene seed is pretty much just organs grown, and so you can make hybrid gene seed or mutant gene seed if you just take the right circumstances. You take some gene seed organs, you put them in a body, and then when a Marine is made and those new organs are grown, boom, bada bing, you made a new Space Marine. But the new gene seed that they'll make once they're gone, and an apothecary has to harvest it, it will become Chimeric gene seed. Also, little headcanon, but I believe most Space Marine chapters that don't know their Primarch and aren't mutated are actually chimeric gene seeds of the less mutated Primarchs. They don't know their Primarch, and they don't really have one. They have multiple, and their gene seed is not mutated at all. Purely because stuff like that, what I described earlier, would happen. An apothecary would put gene seed belonging to a different chapter of Space Marines in one of their Marines, and boom. Eventually, if it happens enough, those chapters would end up becoming chimeric gene seed that is rather stable, but still chimeric and doesn't have a Primarch, because they were, well, an accident. The result of genetic recombination, essentially, which would stop their gene seed from getting unstable over time. A Space Marine chapter could have been starting to develop a mutation in one of their organs that ended up becoming prominent later on, but they ended up replacing that organ that was slowly starting to become mutated with something more stable accidentally, and that led to them lacking that mutation in the future. Well, I'm done ranting about chimeric gene seed. See ya, and thank you to anybody who watched this video.